Alright guys, welcome to the final video in my LSU vs. Clemson preview series. Today we're going to finally dive into this game. I'm going to give you some reasons why I think this could be a historic night for LSU. And at the end, I'm going to give you my prediction for the game. If you're new to the channel, my name is Jonathan. The channel is Living Lambeaux. And on this channel, we do videos like this one. We do some stuff based around Disney. We do some stuff around movies. And a couple other little things. I like to say there's a little something for everybody. So if this is your first time here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And go ahead and tap that notification bell so you know when more videos like this one are posted. So if I'm going to give you a couple reasons on why this could be a historic night for LSU record-wise, I figured the most logical place to start would be with the records themselves. Now obviously this list is dominated by Bama and Clemson. Bama holds the record for most points in a game with 45. They said that in 2015. Clemson holds the record for most passing yards with 420. They said that in 2016. Ohio State set the record for most rushing yards with 296 in 2014. That's the one that's probably not going to get touched. And then Clemson holds the record for total yards with 550 in 2015. And then they also hold the record for most first downs in a game with 31. And they actually did that twice, 2015 and 2016. So let's start on the offensive side of the football, how I think LSU matches up with Clemson. And to be honest, I think they match up very well. Now I did two videos prior to this one. I took deep dives into the Clemson offense and the Clemson defense. I'll go ahead and I'll link both of those in the description below, so go check them out. But just kind of a quick refresher on the Clemson defense. They're number 1 in the country in points per game, number 16 in rushing yards allowed, number 1 in passing yards allowed, number 2 in yards per game, number 12 in sacks, 3 in tackles for a loss, and they are 3rd in interceptions. So obviously, as you just saw, they rank very well in just about every category, but I do not think they match up with LSU all that well. And that's not really a slight at Clemson, because I don't think anybody matches up with LSU all that well. So as an LSU fan, the guy I think you want to start with on the Clemson defense is number 11, Isaiah Simmons. The first play of the game Monday night, the first play for LSU offensively, Clemson defensively, find where number 11 is, find where he's lining up, and kind of take note on that, because that is important. He can play anywhere from a rush linebacker to a rover to in the slot. He can play safety. So it's really a guessing game of where they're going to line him up. He's been seeing a lot of time in the secondary, in the slot, or at safety. And I do not think Clemson can afford to line him up in those spots, because he's not going to be able to defend any of the LSU wide receivers. If you get Isaiah Simmons on Justin Jefferson, that's a mismatch, and it's going to go LSU's way every single time. I feel like the best area to line him up for Clemson is at that rover linebackers, to where he can kind of spy. He can spy Joe, or he can defend Clyde. LSU relies on their running backs to catch the ball out of the backfield maybe more than anybody in the country. And I do not feel like the linebackers for Clemson can't keep up with Clyde sideline to sideline. So they're going to have to rely on Simmons to kind of take that role. The issue with that is Clemson does not like to play nickel and dime corners. They would rather put an extra safety on the field. That could be number 11 Isaiah Simmons. It could be number 24 Nolan Turner. They're number 3 and the number 4 corners. Mario Goodrich and Sheridan Jones. Neither one saw really extensive time this season. And I kind of feel like no matter what route you take, you're going to wind up in the same position, which is not good for Clemson. It's just that you don't have enough guys to match up with LSU's weapons one-on-one. And I feel like even at the number 1 spots, whether that's Jamar Chase and AJ Terrell, LSU has an advantage. But when you get down to those 3, 4, 5 guys, that's where LSU has a huge advantage. And to go back to Clemson's linebackers and safeties here real quick, asking them to have to come out and defend guys like Clyde or even Thaddeus Moss is just something that they have not had to ask them to do all that much, especially last week, where Ohio State does not use their backs or their tight ends nearly in the way LSU does. Clyde more than doubled J.K. Dobbins in receptions, 50 to 23. And Thaddeus Moss had 43 catches, and I think Ohio State's starting tight end had like 14. So if you're LSU, you're just putting more and more pressure on these opposing defenses, which is one of many reasons on why LSU is so good. Another thing to keep an eye on is LSU's offensive line versus Clemson's defensive line. LSU has a huge size advantage in the trenches, and I think that's something that LSU can take advantage of early and often. LSU's 5 offensive linemen average out to about 323 pounds each, while Clemson's defensive line averages out to only 278. To kind of put that in perspective, Florida averages out to 275, and I'm sure we all remember what LSU was able to do on the ground that night. They were able to push Florida's defensive line around anytime they wanted to. I think they finished with 218 yards and like 9.2 yards per carry that night. And I'm not saying that LSU is going to dominate Clemson that bad on the ground, but I do think that's an area that they can take advantage of. Alright, let's flip sides of the ball. Let's look at LSU's defense versus Clemson's offense. I want to start off by saying that Clemson has 3 absolute monsters at their skill positions: Travis Etienne, T. Higgins, and Justin Ross. I think the biggest factor for LSU in this game defensively is keeping Etienne contained and possibly making the Clemson offense one-dimensional. Etienne has the potential to take it to the house anytime he touches the ball. He's 4th in the nation amongst running backs on 20-plus yard carries with 16, and he also had another 5 receptions for 20-plus yards. If you remember back to their game against Ohio State, he had 3 total touchdowns, 2 of them on receptions, coming from 53 and 34 yards. Now Clemson does want to be balanced on the ground. They don't want to end this game having to throw the ball 50 times and running it 20-25 times. From my research, they want to be somewhere in the 30s, preferably the mid-30s. Clemson only faced 2 top 30 run defenses this year, and Etienne averaged 3.3 yards per carry in those 2 games against Ohio State and Texas A&M. And it really made me wonder, and this may just be me thinking out loud, but did Clemson go into that game against Ohio State thinking that, hey, we might not be able to run the ball, so we have to do something else, and that's the reason Trevor Lawrence ran it 16 times? In the offensive study video that I referenced earlier, I believe Lawrence averaged like 5 carries a game on the season aside from his 16 carries last time out. So again, maybe that's just me thinking that maybe they thought they were going to have some trouble, so they had to do something else offensively. Fulton and Stingley versus Higgins and Ross on the outside is going to be a great matchup to watch. But I think Clemson's going to be really forced to kind of move those 2 guys around a little bit and try to find some mismatches, maybe against Vincent or Delpit or Stevens or somebody like that, because I think they know deep down that they can't just rely on those 2 guys going up against Fulton and Stingley and having success all night. Now, Oklahoma actually did try to do that quite often. They tried to get CeeDee Lamb matched up on Vincent or on a safety, and that's really how they tried to hit their big plays that game, is that they took several shots downfield to CeeDee Lamb, and to LSU's credit, they actually did a very good job defending it. Even on the one that comes to mind that they completed on Jacoby Stevens, he actually had pretty decent coverage on Lamb. But even then, that's really not what Clemson wants to do. They don't really want to throw the ball that far downfield. They like running these stack formations with their receivers, mostly Amari Rodgers, to where they can get the game flowing east and west. And even that kind of thing is something that I don't think is going to have as much success against LSU because of how well LSU moves side to side. And finally, the Clemson offensive line versus the LSU defensive line. I do think this Clemson unit is super solid, but I don't think they have the elite players that an Alabama or a Georgia would have. I don't think they have any guy that's just going to stonewall an LSU defensive lineman. And I do think there are some areas that LSU can kind of win at, specifically against left tackle Carmen Jackson, who, after I went back and watched the Ohio State game, I really didn't think he played all that well. I know the whole Chase Young stat thing is like a real thing, but I kind of really thought Chase kind of wore him out, especially in the 3rd quarter. But Lawrence is just so athletic that he escaped pressure numerous times in that game, but Ohio State was still able to get to them 3 times. So that's what I have to watch out for in this game, guys. So to kind of recap, I think LSU offensively matches up really well against Clemson. I don't think Clemson has the guys to defend LSU through the air. I think LSU will have a mismatch somewhere on the field on every single play, depending on how Clemson lines up. And I think LSU's offensive line can just kind of impose their will against a significantly smaller defensive line for Clemson. And then defensively, if LSU can continue to be a good run defense and kind of make Clemson one-dimensional, that will kind of play into LSU's hands to be able to come after Lawrence a little bit with Chason and Brooks. And you're getting Divinity back, so he'll play some special packages and things like that. So as for my prediction, I've been kind of leery all year from looking like the homer, but I'm kind of past that at this point because I try not to look like one, but then LSU blows out the opponent anyway. So for this game, I'm going 41-28 LSU. I just don't think Clemson has what it takes to keep up with LSU, and I don't think they have what it takes to stop LSU, to be honest. So that's my score. Go ahead and drop yours down in the comments below while you're down there. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I'm looking forward to the post-game video. Hopefully an LSU victory. Should be a good one. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you guys come back next time. See you guys later. Bye.